so much for having me. There are three separate themes in this show. One has to do with the 12 minor prophets in the Old Testament of the Bible. I'm standing in front of one of those. And then another one has to do with a series of oils called Consider the Lilies. And then the third is just my enjoyment of being in Missouri and etchings of different landscapes, riverscapes, treescapes in Missouri. So let me start with this one. This is from the 12 Minor Prophets. It's a large painting. All the paintings in this series are quite large. They're almost 7 feet across and about as tall as I am if you had it on the floor. And these are all acrylics because I like to be able to add something into it. For example, I have a horn over here on the far right from an instrument repair person here in the Kansas City area. And then also I have a little timepiece, and the horn, I am hoping, kind of conveys the idea of proclamation. And the timepiece, I'm hoping, will cause people to consider what times we are living in today. This particular painting, however, from the prophet Jonah, was from many years ago, about 800 years before the birth of Christ. And Jonah is known as the reluctant prophet because he did not want to go to Nineveh, did not want to go at all. In fact, he chartered a boat that was going west instead of going east to the city of Nineveh. And there was a big storm at sea. Most people know about that, and they know about the large fish that might have been a whale that swallowed Jonah when the sailors threw him over the edge of the boat to calm the turbulent seas. But eventually he was washed up on shore, and he finally agreed to go to Nineveh. And so he went to Nineveh, which was about the size of Kansas City, about 60 miles across. I'm talking both Kansas cities. Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas. Because we are told that the city was so large, it was 3 days walk across. In those days, men could walk 20 miles a day. Huge city. And they all recanted, and as a result, God spared the city. And so what you have here is a very happy looking painting with bright, cheerful colors showing Nineveh just after Jonah had been there. This painting by the prophet Nahum is anything but cheerful. It's an extremely messy acrylic with a lot of different things thrown in there, but still has the horn for proclamation, still has the timepiece. In fact, it has a couple of timepieces. This actually is a picture of the town of Mosul. You see, Nineveh did not stay repentant. What happened was Nineveh backslid, as we say, and so eventually the prophet Nahum prophesied that Nineveh was going to be destroyed, and it was. And it was never built up, but there was a little tiny suburb outside of Nineveh called Mosul. And Mosul, as we know today, grew into a city of about 10 million people. And in our time, see, we're part of this one. In our time, we were part of the forces that destroyed Mosul about a decade ago. Now, Mosul, the last I knew, was on its third mayor. Each mayor promised to rebuild the infrastructure. It hasn't happened yet. Now, this painting is another acrylic. A lot of people really have liked this. On Saturday, when we had the open house, I would say of all the paintings, this was the most popular. And it's because I think of all the bugs. We have some real bugs in here. We have real Japanese beetles. And then the pictures of other kinds of bugs in the painting that were hand-painted or silk-screened, some real wheat. And it's from the prophet Joel. Now, Joel also did not have a particularly happy message, just as Nahum didn't have a happy message. In the beginning of Joel, it talks about the invasion of locusts, grasshoppers, all kinds of cutting animals and bugs, as they were described, who came in and destroyed the crops, again, as a punishment. Now we finally get to a prophet that has a happy message again. This is the prophet Zephaniah, and he started out with the usual oracle formulas. The oracles meaning that this is going to be a prediction of something bad that's going to happen. But in this case, he just couldn't keep up with that theme. He kept having to break out with a message of hope. And so in this particular painting, even though we still have the horns, we still have the timepiece, nonetheless, Zephaniah, a very short book, just had to give the message of hope that Zion was going to be restored someday. And we actually have sort of seen that happening also in our lifetimes. So in this particular one, you have a ball, and in it is a human shape being recreated, and the heavens to suggest heavenly involvement. The browns are arms coming down, being involved in creation. So this, I think, is a much more placid, much more happy painting without bright colors necessarily, but still a positive message rather than a negative message. These paintings are part of a completely different series. A different medium is used. These are oil paintings. I love to work with oils. Acrylics are kind of difficult. You don't always see what you're going to get when you're working with them because they dry a little differently from the colors that you put on originally. But with oils, you always know what you're going to get. And they're so rich, and you can do so much with the impasto, with the brush strokes. And I use all kinds of tools. Sometimes I will use credit cards, sometimes palette knives, sometimes brushes, sometimes my fingers, and then I will build them up in layers with transparent glazes of different colors until I get the effect I want. So this is one of those series. It's from the series that's called Consider the Lilies, and I had a special intent in this, and that was to have people not be able to look at a picture of a flower and take it for granted. Like, just, oh, well, it's just another flower. So they aren't lilies. The title is lilies, but these are chrysanthemums and a rosebud. And then I usually do something with the color. There's a lot of purple in here. You would not normally see that in a chrysanthemum. And likewise, the reds are extremely intense. So what I'm trying to do in these paintings is to take people from the ordinary into consideration of what is involved in creating something of beauty. Now this is another painting in the Consider the Lilies series, oils, and you can see, I think, much better how the painting has been built up with successive layers of clear glaze. And this actually is a lily, but it also has rosebud textures. And I think you have to be with this painting a little while and do get up close to it to appreciate it. And that's another reason why I work large. I want people to feel as if they can walk right into the work and be part of it, that this is now a new world that you're kind of entering. And so that is why the work is large. People always ask me, why do you work so big? But that's why I want people to be able just to get into the work and instead of stepping back and looking at it objectively. Now this is from the same series. It has quite a different look about it, and that's because it's been painted twice. Underneath are the actual colors of the lily painting, and then I took the complements and put them on top. And as I was working, I was thinking, I just have to get something that's a little bit more vibrant. And so I put some real gold leaf in here. But I think you would never actually see a flower that looks anything like that. And yet, it very definitely started out as a representation of a real lily. So occasionally I will actually use a real lily in paintings. You've now seen two, but that's all you're going to see. These are the last of the lilies as lilies.